I am your host, Doc Rodden, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review the very latest in streaming and video on-demand horror movies. Each week, my co-host, Jeff Mohr, Crystal Cleveland, and I will take a look at various scary, spooky, gory genre offerings. Joining me this week is my co-host, Jeff Mohr. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm excellent. I'm
Excellent.
ready for a doubleheader. Let's play two.
Let's do it. Are you ready? We've got some good ones, and we've got some okay ones. It's what we do. That's why we're doing it. Yeah. Also joining us this week is Crystal Cleveland, the living dead girl. How you doing, Crystal?
I am wonderful. I've had a good week so far, and so kind of excited to get into these movies.
Yes.
They're definitely thinkers, at least, you know.
There's some head scratchers. There's some thinkers. Yeah, there's plenty to talk about. That's for certain. Before we get to our special guest this week, I heard, Crystal, that you are going to be in a horror film and playing a monster. Want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I'm going to be in Christopher G. Mohr's new short film called Backward Creep. And of course, I'm sure your listeners know Christopher, as he's also part of the Horror News Radio crew. And yeah, I get to play, I don't know how much I can say about who she is, or but let me tell you something. When I read the script, I was like, oh, he's so smart. It's going to be really, really good. It's very smartly written. Some of the scares that he's going to use some of it's a little simple, and it's so good. Even when I read it, I was like, that's smart. So I'm really excited to get into this. Christopher has a very good eye. And I think that even reading the script, I think he's going to make it something even better than I could possibly imagine. Oh, am I touting him? But yeah, I really do think it's going to be awesome. I'm working with a costume designer right now, and it's going to be really neat looking. I'm like super excited. She's very, very good. Her name is Elizabeth, and she's an amazing. I don't know if she doesn't cosplay in like she doesn't do what am I trying to say, competitions or stuff, but she has judged some of them and stuff, because she does do this on a professional level. And I saw all the sketches, and she's being very detailed with every piece of the costume, and there's going to be a cool mask as well. So yeah, it's always fun to play the bad guy. I mean, you know, I think I have this theory. I think that the nicest people get cast as the bad guys. Yeah.
That works. Yeah. Well, we can't wait.
Keep telling yourself that.
Yeah. We can't wait to hear more about it as August comes and goes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. But actually, we're going to be filming, very soon. It's like in a few weeks. So
yes.
I'll let you know more as it goes. Yes, I'll let you know more as it goes along. And I'll, I'm sure Christopher will release details here and there as we're moving forward. Yay! Well, thanks for bringing that up, because it's super fun. Super excited.
Well, we've kept them out in the wings long enough. Joining us this week is my co-host from Horror News Radio, guest hosting this week here on Gruesome Magazine, the one and only Dave Dreher, back again. Dave, you keep doing this, you're going to find yourself being a regular, dude.
As I say, this is like, what, 3 in a row now? Something like that.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Happy to be here again.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we know that there's certain types of films that you really like, and this week had at least one, and one maybe that we should have known you wouldn't, but we threw it at you anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so when I seen the double subtitles, I'm like, fuck.
I don't know. Those are subtitles.
2 goddamn subtitles.
There's double subtitles. Yeah.
I thought the same. Actually, at first I was like, what's happening? What's going on here? I mean, I had to go back because I was so confused. I was like, is this going to be this way the whole time?
Only when, yep. We'll get to it.
Yep.
All right, we have 2 films to talk about. That's what we do here. We review 2 films that are on streaming or coming to streaming very soon. The first one up is a film called Lose. It's a German film. That's where the subtitles come in, but some of the characters don't speak German, so they get subtitles in German. And yes, we have 2 subtitles stacked on top of each other just to irritate Dave as much as possible, because that's how much we love Dave.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you just had to make this film just to annoy me.
I did. I called him up, said, "Hey!" All right. The other film is called Trespassers, and this one is right up Dave's alley. Lots of gore and fun, and
there's all kinds of surprising things going on.
Yes. So we are excited to talk about both of these films. And let's just dive straight into it. The first one, like we said, is Lose. It's from director Tilman Singer. The cast includes Luana Vellis, Johannes Benecki, and Jan Bluthart. I doubt it. I tried my best, but I probably butchered each and every one of those. It is about Luz, a young cab driver. She drags herself into a brightly lit entrance of a run-down police station, and a demonic entity follows her, determined to finally be close to the woman it loves. Yeah, that's an interesting... I'm sure that happened in this movie, but I don't know if I know if it happened. This is going to be the head scratcher of the year, but let's dive directly into this. Jeff, this just feels like one that you would have a handle on. So why don't you be the first one to give us your first impression for Lose?
It does, doesn't it? Which makes me even more confused. This is one I had heard about through, I don't know, festival buzz, I guess. Our buddy Joseph Perry posted a review of it at one of his many places he submits reviews to. And I'm telling you, I watched this pretty cold. I didn't read anything about it. And I don't want to say I didn't have any idea what was going on, but there weren't any aliens. No.
There's no aliens.
But I didn't have any idea what was going on. No, I had a little bit of idea. So it's a director's first feature, and also the lead actress, Luana Vellis, it's her first feature, and most of them are fairly new, if I remember right. And it's in, we sort of alluded to this, but it's sometimes the characters are speaking German and sometimes they're speaking Spanish. And you get subtitles and I think they might even be, so yeah, you get multiple subtitles on this. German and Spanish, German and English, Spanish and English, I think. I don't know. It was a little confusing at first. It's very strange, even experimental, I think, in its narrative style. The actors seem to play multiple parts, including one male who is a female part of the time, I guess. I don't know. It's sort of like some of it's in sort of a dreamlike state, some of it's in hypnotic states. There's almost no indicators of setting or function, what the building is for, anything that indicates what it's used for, pretty much like a bare room with rows of chairs in it or something like that. There's there's minimal dialogue, and sometimes there's these huge lapses between responses in a conversation, to the point of where you can't really even tell if it is a conversation or is it just people saying lines that don't connect. There's really no exposition. There's no explanation of what's going on. And again, the minimal dialogue, you rarely know what kind of building it is. For instance, you read that she drives up to a police station. Well, I think, if I remember correctly, the opening scene shows what appears to be a really big waiting room with one person sitting at like the reception desk, doing things, answering the phone, looking at a computer, whatever. And our main character, Luz, walks in, and I use the word walk loosely. She hesitantly, very slowly moves one foot. But anyway, did you see anything there that indicated that was a police station?
Only that the guy behind the desk was a police officer.
How did you know that?
From his clothes.
Oh, I couldn't tell from the clothes.
Okay. I mean, for some reason.
And in fact, I thought it was a woman.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So it was probably a guy. So, she walks in. The woman, the person at the desk ignores her. She walks very, very slowly over to a vending machine, gets something out of the vending machine, walks very, very slowly back over, and then starts saying this sort of nonsensical, what seems like a nonsensical prayer. So, at any rate, this is pretty much the way it goes on. However, I mean, a lot of times the dialogue doesn't make any sense in what little framework is provided within the film. But even so, if I after watching it, as I often do, then I read some about it and went, oh, I would like to watch that again. It's not very long. That's I think a plus in this sort of experimental state. I think it's 70 minutes. So I would like to watch it again, kind of knowing what the intent was. But I was, going to take up the challenge. But very little of this did I know what was going on. There's one section where there's some hypnosis and some responses, and then there's a translator, and we kind of figure out the woman is a detective or something, but it's pretty out there.
It is out there, and it's also very minimalist in its settings. We basically we only have 4 sets.
Or number, yeah.
Yeah, we have 4 sets. We have the bar, and then of course the bathroom of the bar, which is an important scene. And of course we get the entrance room to the police station, we suppose, and then of course the room where they interrogate her. So there is
a scene in the taxi too, though, right?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, I guess we do get a taxi, but it's all kind of a flashback, so it's
right.
It's not a hard part of the narrative like what we're talking about. But yeah, we do get some flashback stuff. But let's find out before we get too far down that road. Let's find out what our guest host Dave Dreher has to think. What was your first impression of Luz?
Well, again, the subtitles threw me off immediately, as did the pacing of that opening scene that Jeff so eloquently described. I mean, that first scene is like 5 minutes long, and it's literally a woman walking in a door and getting a pop. So I'm like, oh my God, what is this? But it does, enough weird shit goes on that you kind of can't stop watching it. And again, I looked at the time. I'm like, how long am I going to have to watch this crap? And it was just a little over an hour. So it's like, okay, well, I can devote an hour to this. And I'm kind of glad I did because, again, as Jeff kind of alluded to, is a little bit of an experimental film. And I liked some of the visual stuff we got in this. Some of it was, and the music was creepy as hell. I really enjoyed the music in it. I had no idea what the story was about because he goes into that bathroom and that lady's there, and then he's shaking around like somebody stuck a live wire up his ass, and then she that light comes out of her mouth, and I'm like, okay, so that must be some kind of demon being passed to him, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But it all was kind of visually fun. But I had, between the subtitles and all that, I had absolutely zero idea what was going on. I didn't even figure out that the lady who's walking in the door was the lady that the story was about till about halfway through. I'm like, oh, hey, that's right. Okay, that's the lady that walked in and got a pop at the beginning. The guy who plays the lead guy, who I guess turns into a woman. I'm not sure what that was all about. I love that scene. I love that scene where there's I don't know what's supposed to be going on. She's like struggling up this row of chairs and there's a light and she's like, oh, she's trying so hard to get up. And all of a sudden he runs by in a dress like at 900 miles an hour. Like, what the hell was that? I had to like rewind it and watch it like 3 times. I'm like, that's the craziest damn thing I ever seen. So yeah, I mean, I can't say I hated it, Doc. I want to say I hated it, but in all honesty, I didn't hate it.
But you might have actually liked it. Oh my gosh! All right,
yeah.
All right. Well, let's keep this train going. All right, Crystal, what was your first impression of Lose?
I'm almost of the exact same mindset as Dave. This movie is incredibly confusing. It makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense. The fact that it's not chronological and the conversations were very minimal. Actually, I think that there was something very compelling about that, actually. We tend to hear the same lines over and over throughout the entire movie, and there's very little dialogue. These extremely long shots are so unusual, but really quite artistic. And it amazed me with some of the slow zoom-ins, how beautiful they were done. I don't know what sort of device or Steadicam. I'm not a filmmaker, so I don't know what was used, but just the speed at the zooms and the shots, and it was it's a grainy film. Like it looks like it was shot, I don't know, in like, like on older film or something. I don't know what it was, but it kind of created sort of a time and timeless feel. And it was actually hard to tell. The acting I thought was phenomenal. The effects also, which there weren't all that many effects, but the ones that they used were very, very, very simple. I mean, she literally, the scene you mentioned, Dave, like she literally had like a light in her mouth coming out.
Yeah, but it was effective. I mean,
it was okay.
It worked. Yeah, it worked.
That's what's so crazy about it.
Sometimes simple is good.
I am absolutely with you. And that's what I was saying. Like, I could not pinpoint what makes this film compelling and successful in the way it's done for me, but it is compelling and it was done successfully. Now, did I just absolutely love the movie? No. I think had I maybe if I watched it again, I think it's a film. If I watched it more, I would probably grow to love it because it was just a little bit confusing. I'm like, okay, there's an occult sort of ritual, and then obviously she's attracted to the dark side, and she's got some sort of demons that are attracted to her, and so it's simple in its premise, and really there really wasn't a story. It was just really a character study about her and what's kind of happened to her. There wasn't, and then we just kind of get, we kind of have an ending there. But yeah, it was not bad. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it's worth giving it a try, checking it out.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I did. So I'm kind of, I guess, in the same camp as everybody else. I'm very kind of taken aback by the narrative because it's not about the narrative. It's about sort of. I mean, there's something going on between these two characters, and one's eluding the other, and but it doesn't really resolve that narrative. But it doesn't feel like that's what the story is trying to convey. It's trying to convey some kind of emotion or some kind of deeper meaning that eluded me for some reason, and I'm fine with that. What made the film work for me, one, I found the trying to figure out fascinating, but I really liked our leads. I found them incredibly engaging and charismatic. I liked Luana Vellis, who plays Luz, and then Jan Bluchart, who plays Dr. Rossini. Although I didn't like him in the bar, but I liked him once he was possessed. So this whole interaction between them was fascinating. And then the way they revealed the story, which was through this hypnosis. The doctor hypnotizes Luz, and she's kind of telling the story. And the more we get into the story, the more the story kind of like starts to find its way into the setting, which was bizarre.
Yeah, and it makes you kind of. Oh, sorry, I'm cutting. But it makes you kind of wonder whether what did this happen, and kind of it's almost like they were placed in those times, right?
Yeah, it felt like the two timelines were like blending together as we were reliving it. Kind of, I guess, through the mind of Luz a bit.
Yeah, in a way, I was thinking, okay, are they possessing these people in the past? Because he had like it almost felt like that, that each of them through this hypnosis, like I felt like he was possessing the passenger, whoever this passenger was, which I don't know if that was technically the girlfriend. See, that's where things get muddled for me.
Well, yeah, because the passenger, I thought, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought the passenger was the one that ended up in the bar that then possessed
the girlfriend.
Rossini that came back, and so it was like this, this cycle, this weird cycle. But at the same time, the reaction of the guy in the booth,
oh yeah,
was oh my god, side splitting. When he starts taking like his clothes off and he just pulls the shade down.
Well, that was actually, he didn't pull it down to the end. I mean, this dude like totally stripped in front of him and put a dress on, and then stuck his fingers up his nose and rubbed the blood through his hair, and then he closed the shade. I've been like, dude, you were about 5 minutes late on that shit.
Oh man, but he was just like, I'm staying in this booth, and nobody's getting in this booth, and I'm gonna. And I think he had the right idea. It was
wasn't there stuff he wouldn't translate too?
There was a lot of stuff. He wouldn't translate.
He's like, I'm not going to say that.
Yeah, which was hilarious. I don't know.
Which may have been good because part of that was like sort of the demon's prayer incantation or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it was like that. Isn't that based off the Lord's Prayer? But obviously, it was the unholy version or an unholy version.
But by the time the room got crazy and smoke filled, and things were happening beyond the smoke, and you weren't really sure. But Luz was never really totally in the story; she was still stuck. It was really bizarre. And I'm scratching my head about the ending. Did what actually happened? Where did this all go? What's happening now is
because we circle back around right to like where we started.
In a way,
it ends
right?
as it starts, or as it started,
She's in that room again, with the vending machine. But is it starting over, or is it just leaving? I don't know.
It was very, very, very confusing, and I'm with Jeff too. I had no clue that she was in a police office. I did not notice that guy was in a police outfit at all.
And that might be because at work at my job, we have a somewhat similar setting. When you walk in, there's a guard sitting there.
Okay.
And in our case, it's just.
Well, maybe you better read the synopsis too, because I went into it blind. I had no idea what this was about, so I didn't. The fact that she would even potentially be in a police station was not even on my radar.
Right. So, I wish I'd have read that longer synopsis before I watched it, because I think it would still be hard to catch what's going on, but you'd at least kind of get an idea what to look for.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like catch me, but okay. So let's talk about that bar scene a little bit, because while I didn't like that version of Dr. Rossini, I loved his acting drunk, which was subtle but funny. Like when he goes to drink the drink that you're supposed to mix and totally forgets to. Right?
He was pounding him down.
Well, she was forcing that down. It was like, but it was like, Yeah, I don't know. How long did it take for you guys to figure out that something was up with these two? Because basically we have the two of them and the bartender, and that's it. And it's very cold, and the camera is only in like one of three positions the entire time.
Yeah, and it looks like it's in a basement. I mean, literally, it looks like it's in a basement.
Basement bar.
Yeah.
How long did it take? I don't know. I mean, you knew something was going on. It was carrying on the same long silences that were in that opening scene in the police station. One of them would say something, and then there would be no movement, no acknowledgement, nothing for like 30 seconds, which is a long time to not say anything. And then they would answer, or maybe ask another question, the original person.
Well, and the conversation was weird too, because, it's like something like, are you a doctor? You have a pager. And,
right.
And he's like, I'm a dentist or something like that at first. And I'm like, again, none of it made any sense. And then he says he's a psychoanalyst or something like that. And, but you knew inevitably it was going to end up with them banging in the bathroom. I mean, that's where it was heading. And, she was obviously trying to pick him up. But again, with me, I'm trying to figure out how this is tying into, the 5-minute getting a pop scene, and so none of it really made any sense. But once he gets possessed in the bathroom, then things get kind of funky and a little better.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I felt like her movements, even in the bar, were really strange. Did you see how she would like talk and then like turn away from him and just sit there like staring at the floor, or kind of? It's very weird. I think that's what got me in the first place. I was like, that's so weird. I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
What was that?
And he had the same mannerisms too. Once he was
crazy.
Was possessed, and he was
yeah.
So when he was at the interrogation,
it kind of takes you out of natural. Like, I think it was meant to feel very, very unnatural, and it succeeded because it was like, that's just strange. Only when she comes over to sit next to him does it start to feel like a more normal conversation.
Was I the only one that was waiting for Michael Myers? Not Halloween Michael Myers, but Saturday Night Live Michael Myers to walk in as that dude go, and now we dance!
Dance.
And start.
No, I wasn't waiting for that, but now that you said it,
you could insert him in any scene, and it would work. And now we dance.
Oh no, that's terrible. All right, with that, let's wrap this up. Let's give our final thoughts, our score, and favorite scene for Luz. Jeff, start us off.
Well, like I said, I actually think we're kind of all pretty much on the same page to a point. I may have understood less than you guys, but I totally go along with what Dave said when he said something like, there's just enough weird stuff going on to keep you interested, or to keep you watching. And also, I love those long atmospheric visual scenes. So I'm literally like, when they're in the police station, I was like looking, you have so much time that I was looking at everything, trying to, is there anything in here that's I'm supposed to get something out of, the chairs over here, the chairs over there. That's it. So it was interesting to me in that way. And I really do want to watch this again, knowing what I know now. And I may be doing that tonight. But as is, I got to kind of go half and half. It's so weird. I'm just going to go down the middle. I'm going to say 2.5 because I think it's well made, and it's a case of it's what it wants to be. Just because, and I don't think it's pretentious. I think I just haven't got it yet. It's one of those films I got to watch again. So I'm not, and it may go higher. So I'm sort of like a high score for visuals and acting, and a lower score, and I'm averaging them out to a 2.5.
All right. Well, I think that works. Yeah.
The and favorite scene, I'm going to say when the doctor goes after the translator in the booth. Just that guy was so terrified. I don't know why, but it was just, that was when you're going, oh my God, I don't want to say what I think it really was, but that guy was terrified.
He was.
And just in general, he was an interesting character throughout that session, I guess.
Yeah, he seemed like the only one that knew what the hell was going on. He wasn't sharing it with us.
Yeah, and they didn't allow the police detective. Every time she tried to say something, the doctor shushed her.
All right, Dave Dreher, what are your final thoughts? Your score, favorite scene? Lose.
Jeff and I are in agreement on this one. It's a weird little movie, and like I said, I kind of really want to dislike it, but at the end of the day, it held my attention. The director was smart enough to know, I think, that the story didn't need any more fleshing out. It was what it was, and it only took an hour to tell it. So that's what we got. It's a weird little movie. Jeff, you said you thought you understood less. I didn't understand any of it. So I'm just going basically on the visuals I seen and, some of the cool stuff that I actually enjoyed. So I'm going to give it a 2.5 as well. And my score could go up on subsequent viewings as well, possibly. It's really not a horrible film. Favorite scene, I probably was going to take the same one you had, Jeff, so I'll go with Plan B, which is the bathroom scene where our illustrious doctor becomes possessed. Crystal, we were talking about the simplicity of that, the scene when she, kisses him and the entity moves through. Yeah. And it was such a simple effect, but so very effective. Literally, I think she just had a freaking light bulb in her mouth or a light in her mouth.
Probably like one of those little like LED things.
Yeah. But it absolutely worked. And, again, a fine bit of acting on the part of the guy who plays the doctor, because that thrashing around, that was, I didn't know, I had no idea what was going on. At first, I thought she was performing some kind of sex act on him, and then I thought, oh God, I hope not, because that's just something's terribly wrong there. It was effective. It was awkward and then weird and then kind of satisfying, all within about a little 45-second stretch there. So I'll go with that one.
That was Tuesday. Awkward, weird, and satisfying. All right. Well, sorry. All right, Crystal Cleveland, give us your final thoughts and favorite scene. Lose.
Well, I think we all pretty much felt the same or on the same page as everyone else with this movie. There's just something about it, I guess. There's just something about Lose. I give it a 2.5. And I mean, honestly, I think, like I said, if I watched it a few more times, I think I might even grow to like it more. And I really look forward to seeing what this director comes out with in the future, because I think he has an interesting take and lovely visuals. Now, for me, my favorite scene is absolutely when the psychiatrist drops trowel and quote unquote transforms and changes clothes. That's a sad one for me. I was like, that is so scary. So scary. I was like, what's he gonna do? I was like, he's pretending to be someone else, or he is possessed by someone else. So effective.
Or getting ready to possess someone else, or
something along those lines. Anything.
Yeah, that's why it's, it could be any and all. I'm like, yeah, I'll buy it.
Yeah, poor Luz. No matter what she did, it was inevitable that this thing was going to find her, it seems like. Okay, so I found myself drawn into this film despite myself, because I too, like you guys, were like, okay, what is going on? I'm narratively, I'm not really following what's happening, but I found the two leads very charismatic, and I really wanted to see what they were up to. I thought the whole scenario of the interrogation with the hypnosis was an interesting way to bring in flashbacks without fully going flashback, even though they still did, but not so much so. So it was an interesting way to kind of give us exposition without being exposition, because it's not your standard type where somebody's sitting there telling you the story. Even though she kind of is, so it was really fascinating how they because it was telling the story, progressing the story, and giving us exposition all at the same time, which was fairly unique. Visually, for being in these drab rooms, they really brought some atmosphere, and of course they played around with that because at one point we get the the smoke in the room, and it really amps up the supernatural element of it. But it does take its time, and like we've mentioned a couple scenes where it's just like long. It takes a long time for people to actually get started. When the interrogation starts, we basically have two characters standing almost incredibly still, and Lou's just sitting there, and our translator is slowly arranging all the chairs. And
yeah,
right. And we're like, which is weird because it gets us acclimated to what the room and what's going on, but nothing's happening, right? It's just like, all right. So he's sending all these chairs up around her, and he ends up recreating the cab, right? Which we learn later as she starts flashing back. So there's something about what they're after that either gets lost in translation. Maybe there's something that this film is doing that, just I'm totally unaware of. But it caught my attention, and I won't forget certain scenes of it, like the flyby when the guy comes running by. That Dave, I'm surprised you didn't choose that one because that was what? Because that was hilarious. Because it's like boom, like wow, that guy I guess he had to get there fast. Don't look at me, I'm flying by.
I can see the director standing there going, okay, go run.
Yeah. Or he was like supposed to go around the round side and forgot and just went through the scene instead, and they just left it in. We don't know. But it's I don't know. It just has that weird sense to it that I liked. I'm giving this a 3. I liked it a little better. And most of it is because of the actors. Most of that, and the direction, and the directors also wrote the script. But we've already had that discussion, so we'll leave that sitting there. But I want to see this again. Yeah, it's only, like you said, 70 minutes. It's I'll find another time to watch this and see if I can absorb more. Or now that I know where the story ends, see if it actually is trying to tell us something that I missed the first go around. My favorite scene, there could be a number of them. You guys took many of them. I could even do the flyby scene. But I'm going to use, during the interrogation, she basically relives picking up the girl that we saw at the beginning of the movie in the back of the cab. And at one point, she kind of appears behind her, sitting in these chairs. Now it's her we get the impression it's her imagination, and it's supported by our doctor, who comes over and basically stands right behind where she is. But yet you get the impression that even though he's standing right there, he has no idea that the person's being represented there. So it was really effective, and it really throws you kind of off kilter, off balance, because it reinforced that idea that there's like two storylines going on at once right there, and I really like that. And so I'm going to go with that scene, and I think it kind of illustrates what I think this entire film's after. Perhaps.
Which is what? Wait. Tell me, because I want to know. I want to know. Like I think I know, but I'm like,
explain it to his doctor.
Well, just that there's this circular story that's going round and round, and it's happening. It's happening to us, the audience, all at once, right?
Yeah.
So it's all yeah. So it's all blended together. The story where she picks her up at the. Because you could split it all up. It could make a 2-hour movie, and you could have the narrative where she picks her up at at the airport and has, does the crash and then, it shifts into this. But no, it doesn't follow that narrative. It kind of warps it around, but it doesn't do it like other people who screw around with narratives do. Like, Tarantino likes to do that, right? Chapter things out or, do something like that. This is unique. So I want to give it some credit for that. Still scratching my head though. All right. That's Lose. And it is hitting, New York and Los Angeles on July 19th. And there is a multi-city national release to follow, and it will eventually end up somewhere. I would not be surprised if this ended up on Shudder. This feels like a film that would go to Shudder, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes.
It does. It absolutely does.
Yeah. Not that we know that it is. It just feels like one. But if you are in New York and LA on the 19th, check it out. If not, keep an eye out. It may pop up in an art house theater near you in the near future. All right, next on our list is Trespassers. This is from IFC Midnight, and we love our IFC Midnight films. This movie came out in theaters on VOD on July 12th, shortly prior to our recording this. The director is Orson Oblowitz, and sorry, Orson, if I mispronounced that. The cast includes Angela Trimber, Jano Parrish, Fairuza Balk,
I love her,
and Zach Avery. Exactly. This is about two couples who rent a house, a very elaborate, expensive house, and they're trying to patch up their relationships. And man, there's a lot of trouble in these relationships. But somewhere halfway through the film, a stranger appears, says she's a neighbor. Fairuza Balk is that. And after that, let's just say the title tells you what happens and it goes sideways. But it doesn't go sideways in many ways that you might imagine. There are twists and turns, and there's gore to be had. So with that said, we're going to turn this over to Dave Dreher, who loves his gory films. And we're going to get his first impression of Trespassers.
Again, another film I went into totally blind, had no idea what this was, but as soon as I seen that IFC Midnight logo, I was like, oh yeah. I knew we were in for something good. And this did not disappoint in any way, shape, or form. I liked all the leads in this film. I liked the story they were telling. I remember a while back, I don't know if you guys ever seen this, because it really wasn't a horror film, but there was a movie called Very Bad Things, had Cameron Diaz. And,
yep.
Well, this reminded me of that a lot. A situation goes south, then a little more south, then really south, and then south to a point of you're never returning from it. And this film does that. It just keeps escalating and escalating. I don't want to get into any spoiler stuff quite yet, but I kind of had a feeling, they tease us pretty early on with the lady who knows the photography goes in and she starts to develop that picture. And at least I knew right away, it's like, well, whatever's on that picture is going to be what this whole thing is about. Mm-hmm. And it was, but still kind of, even knowing that was kind of coming, it was still shocking and surprising when it all went down. There's a lot to like about this, and I don't want to say too much until everyone's kind of had their part, but
my favorite part actually of the movie is Fairuza. She's so incredibly creepy. Oh my gosh. And so awesome at the same time, because it's such an interesting thing. Someone comes to the door and rings the bell. I don't answer it. That's just the type of person I am. I'm like, I don't answer the door. Good luck. Nope. Ain't gonna answer it. But it seems like in every horror movie, we always have these people who are just like, who's coming to see me? Gotta check it out. So I feel like she played this so well for me, because she is the visitor, or a visitor to the home, and she says she's stranded. She needs help. She needs to just make a phone call, as like she said. She mentioned she's a neighbor, whatever. And coming into the home, she seems so sweet, and yet she's very unmindful of boundaries. And it's so interesting, I think, to see the cringiness of it all, because she's like, oh yes, I'm gonna leave, but I'm just gonna get a glass of water first after they tell her to get out of the house. There was something so real about her to me in this flick that I was pretty much hooked almost from the beginning. But also, as you were talking about this beautiful home that they're renting, which oddly enough, for some reason, the home reminded me of the home from Revenge. I don't know why.
But that's,
I kind of did a little bit. Yeah, I kind of had that same vibe. Yeah.
But her having the nerve to come, I'm assuming it's like an Airbnb type thing. I'm not exactly sure if she knew the people really well, but regardless, the fact that she comes into the home and then, oh, let me just develop your photos. Wow. Speaking of boundaries. But yeah, I found all of the characters very interesting. They're a very diverse bunch. Obviously, they're all intertwined. Some people, or some of the characters, go off a little into La La Land, and some of them are just garbage. And that's not necessarily the murders, but I really liked it as well. I really liked the movie. There's something about it that kept me from loving it. Like, I wasn't like, oh yeah, love it, but I definitely enjoyed it. And I mean, the homage to Jason, and I knew it was coming. I was like, I hope they did. Do you know what I'm talking about? With the pool, he jumps out of the pool.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I was like, oh, I swear, I was like looking at it. I was like, that's like the perfect setup for, whoosh. And I was that made me a little bit too happy, I think, because I was like, but yeah, the gore. Oh God, I love gore too. I love gore. I probably equally as much as Dave does, and some of the kills were really, really super fun. I mean, they had fun with this, I think, with some of that. They had to, because come on, that was like brutality. And then, the story had twists and turns, and honestly, a couple of surprises. I mean, some of it you could kind of tell, but definitely I was surprised with some of it. So yeah, I enjoyed it too.
I was surprised by some too. Yeah, I thought you were going to be talking about the machete to the head instead of the coming out of the pool, but coming out of the pool is 100%. Yeah.
Well, for some reason, the pool, like, I saw it happening before it happened. I was like, that would be, oh yeah. It's such an iconic scene,
Gotta do it. All right, Jeff, sir, what is your first impression of Trespassers? Or do you like the title, Hell is Where the Home Is, better?
That
was his previous title.
Yeah, I did see that. I don't have a preference one way or the other. But actually, Trespassers might be a good one because there's, as Crystal pointed out, when Sarah goes in there and just sort of makes herself at home in the dark room and develops one of the people's picture, which I don't know what happened to it, because then she does it again later on. But
it gets overexposed
when you leave it. When you leave it in there. Okay. Yeah, when you leave it in the chemical too long, it just turns black.
All right.
She pulled it out and threw it away later. Yeah,
that's even ruder.
Well, they still had the negative. So that or whatever was in the machine. Can you tell I'm not a darkroom kind of person? So the thing that I liked is how they set things up, and for a while there's not anything overtly weird going on except that opening sequence, which isn't giving anything away. You see these guys with the skull hoods and white hoods take a couple out and kill them. and you know that they're saying something to him about, all you got to do is tell me where it is, And then when she finds the picture, as Dave said, then you know that that's going to have something to do with something, right? There was also they show up at this house. They're supposed to meet the people that live there at noon, and nobody's there, so they just walk in. And if I remember right, that when Joe goes into the master bedroom, it's not made or anything, which I would think would be a tip off of some sort. It just seemed like the covers and blankets and things were gonna.
Now we do see a picture of the family that lived there, and it's the people that were in the car.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So little things like that. When the visitor comes, when Fairuza Balk shows up, and she's just, it's just so perfectly, a half bubble off. You're like, you could try to convince yourself she's just a little weird, but she's okay, or you could convince yourself this ain't right. So that was a very interesting interaction. And the thing that really got me going then was, when things kind of break into violence, the first act of violence, and then later on there's a reveal that, I suspected, but you didn't know for sure. The guy that plays Victor, I think.
Is that
Jonathan
the sheriff?
Howard? No, the asshole.
Oh, yeah. He was good.
He was really good. He seemed like so many people I've seen, and his attitude and the way he looked was so good. So yeah, and he starts off just being just kind of an irritating guy, and then at some point full color show. So yeah, I liked the way the story was told. I liked the setting. Most of it made sense. There was a couple things that I wondered why the characters took the actions they did, but for the most part, I was all in.
Me too. Me too. I really enjoyed this. I wasn't sure. We had a number of films on our plate, and this one was probably the just from the the blandness of the title. Although it's effective, it's on a poster, it's big and one word, but it didn't really promise much. It didn't suggest anything other than the obvious. And I was very happy this film had a little bit to give us, a little, surprise here and there. I really like Carlo Rota, who plays Sergeant Daniels, one of the two cops that shows up.
Yeah, he's good.
Having the police show up and was an interesting place, because by the time they show up, you kind of forget that, there's these bandits, but they've gone so south that they've screwed themselves over regardless, right?
Well, you forget that they called them.
Oh, God, yeah.
Right. And yeah. I mean, but everything's already crazy, and it still manages to get even crazier, when we realize, there's these bandits that are still sitting out there. When they say, hey, you mean the car that's parked outside? And they're like, what do you mean car? So it just really worked for me, and I was drawn in. I like the four characters, even though they're not likable. So I don't like them in that way. I just like that there was so much friction and so much interesting things going on, or at least enough, right? At least enough to keep the wheels greased and the ball going, because the one character was a complete asshole, and he would just say the wrong things, and that would keep us off guard. And then, of course, the other two had something, a secret, and then our lead is, dealing with a horrific event and is not exactly capable of expressing herself anymore. That to her boyfriend's or husband. I'm not really sure if they were boyfriend or
they were married. They were married.
Yeah.
They mentioned it. Yeah.
Okay.
And he took his ring off at one.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that when they were being interrogated, they took the ring off. So the so there was enough kind of soap opera going on that was quick and to the point and kept things bouncing around well enough that when that effectively distracted me. So when the shit hits the fan, it was fun. Of course, there's always room for Fairuza Balk to come in and shake things up, and I don't think I've seen her and having this much fun in anything in a long time, and she was delightful. And her presence was so much larger than those around her.
It's so true. She definitely was just like, I was like, oh, it's so sweet, and I'm like, oh, something's so wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She was very successful in this character. Mm-hmm.
Well, the glasses helped, and she used them too. She was using those glasses.
Yeah.
I favored this film quite a bit. So let's dive into. Well, Crystal, tell us about why Fairuza's character is pivotal when she comes in, and what works so well. Because, like you said, you can for the longest time you could side either way. She's either very sweet, neighborly, and just a little too pushy, or she's there's something terribly, terribly wrong.
Well, she kind of she mentions that she's a mother, so immediately it kind of allows for some of your defenses to drop, I think, for some of the other characters, especially the women.
Mm-hmm.
The one piece of poop dude that's there can see right through her. He sees absolutely right through her, and is like, nope, don't let her in, get her out, blah 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, he could see her because he's a piece of poop, so he could see what they can't. Yeah. It's true though,
Yep.
And I
he
mean,
could
really,
recognize a manipulator, right?
Yep. And really the reality is though, we do find out, whose side she's on or what side she's on at a point at the end, or closer to the end of the movie, actually. I don't know if y'all noticed that, but yes. She was mentioned. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so there's something in our nature that causes us to want to help people, but sometimes that's not always in our best interest. I mean, Ted Bundy was able to lure his victims with sorts of things like, oh, I lost my dog. Oh, can you help me? And I mean, it's in our nature to want to be helpful and to want to be good and to want to answer the door, which is absolutely crazy to me. I just will never understand that. But I think that's why it worked, because you don't know. I mean, we as the viewer most definitely don't know. We only know as much as the people in the home. And when the guy, when the jerky guy, Victor or whatever, starts being such a jerk to her, it really bothered me, actually. I felt really bad for her. I was like, oh, God, he's such a jerk. He's such a jerk. So she plays it with enough innocence and enough sweetness and gives enough detail of her life. It seems sincere. She played it sincere, but there's something just weird and off about her. And a lot of it is kind of her mannerisms. She's kind of a little bit intense, and she comes across that way. And it just works. I mean, there's something about her as an actress. I think she just has that kind of intensity where you're going to listen and watch her. She can kind of command the screen. It's very impressive.
Yeah, and when is it Joseph? No, it's not. It's not just Victor, right? Victor is up in her face. She doesn't back down. She doesn't back down, and she's like quiet and staring at him, waiting for him to buckle or break or back off on his own things. And
we should mention that also they've been doing cocaine, which it's clearly one of those things where it's like, oh, great. It's just it's the perfect storm of madness.
Mm-hmm. And it certainly bubbles to the surface. Certainly, I think Fairuza Balk steals the movie, and the four leads are strong. For me, Carlo Rota as Sergeant Daniels is the VIP. When he shows up with his deputy and his side, the way he commands the scene and is interrogating them, and you can see in his face that he's staying with the story, but he's not believing anything that they're saying. And he looks down, he sees the photos, so we know what he knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know that he knows, but he's not letting them know. And I don't know. It was really an interesting performance, and I remember seeing him on 24 and some other shows, but he was really good.
So I think this is one part where it really bothered me in the movie. Like, it bothered me that they just didn't come clean with the officers. I was just like, what are you doing? Oh my God. You're just right. You're just digging your grave, people. I think that's why that part of the character, and I just felt like I was like, God, at some point, do you think you're not gonna, what do you think you're gonna do? Like the girls, I was like, they're just gonna keep going with this, and they just kept digging that hole.
Oh, they did.
Dig. And I'm like, no, I think this just bothered me so much. I was like, no, just tell him. I mean, I was like, maybe it actually was successful, even though it bothered me, because I'm like, just be honest, ladies. I'm like,
well, from the very beginning, right?
What do you mean? What do you mean with the cops?
Well, I mean, after the first death, that would have been the best time to call the cops. But
yes,
Victor
absolutely.
bullies everybody and doesn't let him. And then when this time comes around, now there's been another murder.
Self-defense. That was self-defense. Yeah, that was.
I know,
exactly.
but how many self-defenses and accidents do you get?
Well, but he did the first one.
And she started telling the story, and so Sarah went along just to support her. So she sort of just blurted something out that was wrong. That's the way I took it. And people tell a lie and then they get sucked into it. It's kind of like what Dave was saying. You convince yourself that the wrong thing is the thing you should do, and it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Oh their story sounded so. I was like, oh God. I was like, these cops are never going to let them go.
Yeah,
and they wouldn't have if things didn't escalate in the most spectacular way. So we got to get Dave in here. Dave, when the door opens and the hatchet lands, was that a great scene for you?
It was. Absolutely. Was kind of waiting for it. You figure it had to come. I mean, we kind of got a little tease of it. With the first death, it was, when that happens, you're kind of like, oh yeah, here we go. Now we're off. But actually, we really got off and running with the hatchet. The hatchet into the deputy was pretty spectacular.
Oh yeah, blood splatters. We get a great thud effect, and everybody's shocked. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, maybe not everyone.
Well, somebody was. Yeah.
Well, those masks were creepy too. I mean, they looked like they were worn and faded or raveled or something, but they were still creepy.
I agree, and they were just like those, like cloth, right? They were just like cloth pieces.
Yeah, like those neckerchief things or the bandana type things. Yeah,
kind of I liked it too.
Oh, he was pretty creepy. He was pretty creepy looking, even with the skull mask off. So
yes, he was.
The mask really wasn't needed.
Yeah, he might have been creepier without it. Yeah. We're talking about Joey Abril. Yeah. But you get the right guy for the part. That's what you're talking about right there. You're getting the right guy for the part. Let's talk about our lead real quick before we wrap things up. Angela Trimber, who plays Sarah, is the one you're going to gravitate to the most. They've structured a story around that, right? You're going to identify with her. She's the one that has, I guess, the most innocent story. And how does she add up? Dave, you're always about the final girl, right? So
yeah, that's it. And she was in Final Girls, right? Isn't that where we've seen her before?
That's right. Holy cow.
Yeah. So that's what I recognize. And she kind of reminds me a little bit of that. I never want to get her. She's on that Superstore TV show. I can't think of her name. Isn't that horrible? She kind of reminds me of her
America
for some reason. Yeah, America Ferrera. Yeah, she's just every now and then the way that she holds herself, I was just kind of like, wow, she kind of looks like her. I thought she was great in this. I really do. The scene though, the bathroom scene when they go into the bathroom and they're trying to have a little hanky panky, and and she kind of breaks down in tears. That whole thing, I don't know, just didn't work for me. And they never did. They no? I mean, and maybe I zoned out a little bit on. But did they ever explain why why that was so traumatic for her? Because I missed that.
Well, no, that part is weird and doesn't necessarily make sense to me. But we do find out that I guess spoiler little that she lost their baby. So maybe,
what? I do remember that. I do remember that now.
Maybe I guess. Which it doesn't. I thought maybe she was raped to have some.
Well, that's what I thought. I mean, she was acting like somebody who'd had some type of sexual trauma happen to them.
But maybe she's just associating.
Having a miscarriage would probably do that. And I do remember that point being made, but I didn't associate it with that scene because at the time when you're watching the scene, I'm kind of like, why is she having this emotional breakdown? And I just felt at the time that it really wasn't explained away for. At the time, but I think you're right. I think, see, this is why discussing these things helps.
Yeah.
Now I can watch it a second time and not have that worry on my mind.
Well, the thread between those two scenes is very thin, so not surprised.
Yeah.
You didn't get that
but overall, the performances are all incredibly strong, and then, like I said, they escalate to the point of being almost comedic in how horrible they are. Because it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And when you think it can't, it takes another step, and it goes there. And I like those kind of movies. I really do. So therefore, I like this movie.
Mm.
So I kind of felt like, oddly enough, the husband for me was definitely the weakest character. Like I feel like, I don't know if it was just because Victor was so strong and the female lead was just awesome. As I mean, I don't know if they were so strong that they made him look weak or not, but for me, he almost took me out of the movie at points, unfortunately. But that's like that was my weakest link.
I think much of the problem is that his character wanted to be the alpha and couldn't.
Right. Yeah. And the other guy definitely overpowered him.
Right. Yeah. So it made the character, I think, weaker than they intended. And I think that reflected back on the acting. But I thought he did a fair job with it.
And he was put back on his heels a little bit by his shenanigans too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very true.
I just didn't buy it between him and the other girl though either. When they're having the scene outside, like looking, totally bought it from her. But he just I don't know what it was. I didn't dislike his performance. I just felt like he was the only one that I didn't feel, was completely embracing the character. But you're right. I mean, against Victor, he looks super weak. I think anyone would, because that guy was really good. It's like,
he was intense.
I've like seen people go off like that, and he seemed like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. But one thing I liked about what they did is that, in this movie, sometimes, some characters that get machetes to the head, they die pretty quick, but other characters don't die right away. Right?
Oh, well, yeah.
And that isn't what you usually get in films like this. And I like it when it,
Well, I was thankful for that too, because it helped the ending out too, as far as
it did. It did help the ending out, and we wanted an ending like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So speaking of that, let's wrap this up. Let's give our final thoughts, our score, and favorite scene for Trespassers. Dave, start us off.
Tight little movie. Lots of fun, lots of gore, lots of violence, a couple twists that aren't groanies. They actually serve the story. Overall, this is a really good release. I really enjoyed it a lot. I think I want to go favorite scene. Everyone sure expects me to take the hatchet scene, but I'm going to pull a fast one on you.
No,
I'm actually going to pick the first death
Damn.
when
The sinking film,
when our visitor gets a what exactly was that? Was it a wine bottle? What gets stuck in her eye?
I never did quite figure that out. But
Yeah, I couldn't figure out what the hell that was. Some type of a bottle or something on the table, and
Here's looking at you, kid.
Yeah, that's our first error that something is afoot. Before that, it was just all kind of awkward and weird, and that's what's going on, and then we quickly escalate from that point.
Well, it's a shocker too, because
yes,
you don't want
nowhere.
Want that character to stay around for a while.
Yeah, so it was so that was good. That's going to be my favorite scene, and I'm going to give this one 4 stars.
4 stars.
Wow.
It's
Ooh,
going
la,
4.
la.
Wow, nice.
Wow.
Yeah. That scene that you chose is also important because it turns the tide on what a typical film like this is about. Because now our heroes are, in a different position.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with a title like Trespassers, you're automatically thinking a home invasion type of thing, which I guess it is to a degree. But this is much, much more than that. This is not a straight up home invasion film.
All right. There's a lot of ways you can interpret Trespassers here.
Yes, there's lots of trespassing.
All right, Crystal, what is your final thoughts? Your favorite scene for Trespassers?
Yeah, I liked it too. I think it's definitely a watch. I mean, it's shot well. It's got some cool visuals, some cool deaths. The characters are awesome. There's a couple twists, and even some that you may not know even after watching this. And I'm going to give it a 3.5. So yeah, so I really liked it, and I am going to go with the tripod kill. If you remember what that one is. Yes. Yeah. I was so proud of this moment because, sometimes when people get murked, especially if a woman is doing the murking, they go, they hit them once and they stop. And all I would say is, don't stop. And she didn't. And I was so proud. So proud.
She amped up on the double tap. Let's just put that
yeah. It's like, kill them till they're dead.
Kill them till they're dead. Woo. Jeff, what about you? What is your final thoughts, your score, and favorite scene?
Well, I like that too, Crystal, because when that scene is going on, I'm thinking, what kind of weapons are there in a dark room to defend yourself? But she found one.
Thank goodness.
Couple of them.
So yeah, I think this is. I like this. It's right up there with other IFC Midnight films that we've done. I was starting to get going a little cold turkey. We hadn't done one for 2 or 3 months, and I was thinking, God, we need another IFC Midnight. So here it is.
You need your fix.
Yeah, but I like the writing. I thought was pretty tight in the story. There was everything stayed pretty true. I do have a couple of questions about character decisions, but nothing big enough to really throw me off it. I'm giving this a 3.5, and I'm going to take the spinning bullet scene. I had no idea what the point was of that. He pulls that bullet out, and I was thinking one entirely different, and what they did was seriously screwed up.
Yes. Oh,
kind of brilliant. That was.
And giggling all the while.
Oh my gosh! Yes, wonderful. All right, I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I liked. I was going in kind of nervous because I didn't want to see just a home invasion film. And while it is definitely that, it is far more than that. There's a lot of other things going on, and it may not be the most in-depth kind of film. There's other kind of films similar to that, like Revenge, that is far, far better in other ways. But for what it is, and it never, it's fantastic, and it never really tries to pretend it's not that. So I like what it's doing. I like the characters. I like the actors. Even the ones I didn't like as a character, I liked how they were treated. They were handling that character, such as Victor. Victor was a douche, but he was very important to the story, and it didn't feel, even though it was exaggerated, it still didn't feel, like it wasn't authentic, right? They felt like this guy was just this guy. and you add in narcotics and he's just going to go off the rails, right? So that was fine. And I really liked, Farisa Ball because the Visitor and Carlo Roto as Sergeant Daniels. I liked when they showed up and the way they commanded the scenes when they were in there. It was a lot of fun to see, them dance with the dialogue and make the characters wriggle. And the surprises were aplenty. They weren't, mind-bendingly, crazy like you might think when you hear twist or surprise, but they are certainly suitable and for this film. I seem like I'm hedging my bets here, but I really liked it. 3.75 is the score I'm going to give it.
Nice.
It's sitting there, man. It's sitting there. I really, really had a good time with it. My favorite scene, might have been taken. There's plenty to choose from. But I'm going to go with the one Dave didn't take, the hatchet scene, because I knew something was going to happen, but that wasn't what I was thinking. and that what happens with that and after that, and how the scene kind of keeps going, and they defend themselves quickly before he can get inside the door, and then it starts. People scatter, and the story starts to take a couple different fingers off this way and fingers off that way until we get to a certain point in the film, which I don't want to reveal. But it's what a fun film, and thankfully for IFC Midnight, right?
Yes.
We're hard pressed to think of when they disappoint. All right, so those are the films we have reviewed tonight. Loose, which is, like we said, out in New York and LA July 19th and nationwide shortly thereafter, so look for that. Trespassers came out VOD July 12th from ISC Midnight. And for different reasons, I think we recommend both.
I would agree with that, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yep.
All right. Well, Dave, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for asking yet again.
Yeah, we're going to have to twist your arm and make you a regular.
Uh-oh. You get the contract together, I'll look at it.
Well, it's going to be simple. Please. That's all it's gonna be. All right,
Keep
Dave.
an eye out for Dave films.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Jeff, Crystal, thank you for joining me as well.
Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
having us.
All right, with that, let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good week.